Back to the afternoon session. Thank you for coming back. I know some people have gone to the beach, and that's okay. But I'm very glad most of you did decide to come back to join us, and welcome again to those online. We're really pleased to have you. I'm going to introduce Plenary Session 6 and then hand it over to Vanessa, who will introduce the next session. So thank you very much. Again, this is on documenting search strategies for publication, a librarian's perspective, and I'm very pleased to have two of our wonderful University of Newcastle librarians, Nicole Faull-Brown and Gemma Milton. Where are you guys? Hello? I don't see them in the audience. Did they go to the beach? Don't tell me they've bailed on me. Well, perhaps we'll go to the next session, Vanessa, and we'll get you to introduce it, and we'll come back to this one if we find our librarians. I did think they were aware, unless... Leanne, where are our librarians? Do you know? They were here this morning. Oh, hello. Come and join us. I've introduced you. Please come up and speak. And welcome. I've described you as wonderful University of Newcastle librarians, and thank you very, very much for being here. Please, go ahead.
Thanks. I hope we didn't keep you waiting too long. All right, so it's the clicker, isn't it? No? Oh. Sorry, how do we use is this one? No. The middle one? The middle one? Sorry. Oh, yeah, okay. There we go. All right, we're in business. Okay. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gemma Milton, and I'm joined by my colleague, Nicole Faull-Brown. We're research liaison librarians at the University of Newcastle Library. Our presentation is Documenting Search Strategies for Publication, a Librarian's Perspective. We are going to provide some information about commonly used guidelines for reporting search strategies undertaken for reviews, and we're going to give some practical tips for how to meet reporting requirements, and also how editors and reviewers can recognise compliance. Okay. So in our role as research librarians, we each support PhD students and academic staff across the schools in the College of Health, Medicine and Wellbeing. We provide training and one-on-one consultations at various stages of the research process. Often the staff and students we meet with are undertaking scoping or systematic reviews and need assistance with their literature search strategies. So we help them with building a comprehensive list of keywords and subject headings for each concept in their research question. We teach searching shortcuts like truncation and wildcards and correct use of Boolean operators, so that and, or not. We provide training in using academic databases and strategies for locating grey literature. And in the early stages of the review, we also provide support with reference management and using confidence for screening literature. So we aim to make our own small contribution to good research practice, and hopefully this flows through to the quality of the submissions that you receive at your journals. Okay. Many parts of successful research are dependent on the identification of eligible studies in the literature search stage. It is important that the search strategy is designed to be both comprehensive and reproducible. This contributes to the minimisation of bias. Search strategy reporting is an important part of a publication, but one that is often overlooked. Thorough documentation and reporting ensures that the literature search is verifiable and increases trust in the rigour of the research and its findings. Commonly used review guidelines such as PRISMA, Cochrane, and JBI include detailed instructions for the reporting of the literature search. And in our roles, we've seen cases of manuscripts rejected at the peer review stage with feedback on poorly designed and reported search strategies. So even if authors are not undertaking a systematic review, it is good practice to report the search strategy in detail in publications that include a literature review component. So PRISMA is the first framework that we'll discuss. It's a widely used guideline, I'm sure most of you have heard of it, for reporting on the reason for, methods and results of a systematic review. Its recommendations are evidence-based, and it was designed to improve the reporting practices of researchers. Many journals, organisations and disciplines endorse PRISMA, and it is often the basis for other frameworks, so it's key to be familiar with these guidelines. The PRISMA 2020 statement is the current version, replacing the 2009 PRISMA statement. Of the 27 items in the PRISMA checklist, 3 are most relevant for reporting of the search strategy and results. So on the slides, we've got item 6, which requires details of all sources of information that were searched, including the date of the search to be provided. In the updated statement, item 7 asks for the full search strategy for each information source to be provided. And item 16A relates to the results of the search and the literature screening process, and it's often reported in a PRISMA flow diagram. There are various extensions to PRISMA that can be consulted for further information, including the PRISMA extension for searching, which we will discuss in more detail soon, and there's the PRISMA extension for scoping reviews as well. Okay. And framework number 2 is the Cochrane Handbook. This is a methodological guideline for the undertaking of high-quality systematic reviews of intervention studies. As shown in the slides, the guidelines in Part 1, Chapter 3 of the handbook that relate to reporting the search methods have similar requirements as PRISMA checklist items 6 and 7. So while PRISMA is focused on reporting standards, Cochrane builds on these and goes further in terms of giving researchers a methodology to follow when undertaking all parts of a review. In Part 2, Chapter 4 of the Cochrane Handbook, detailed instructions for constructing a search strategy, selecting databases, undertaking searches, and screening the results are provided. So while most reviews, of course, aren't required to follow the Cochrane standard, the handbook is an excellent source of guidance on best practice in literature search and reporting. So I'm going to hand over to Nicole now, and she'll start with the JBI framework.
Thank you. So the JBI Manual of Evidence Synthesis guides authors who wish to conduct a systematic or scoping review following the JBI methodologies. So documenting the search is mentioned in various chapters, but on the screen you will see the 2 larger mentions. They're within the systematic and scoping review requirements. The main requirements to note here are that search strategy should be comprehensively reported. All sources including the database platform, and any web searches searched. Limits and filters, dates need to be listed. A detailed search strategy in a line-by-line description for all of the major databases should be added as an appendix. If possible, they also do recommend that authors do seek advice from an expert librarian when they develop a search strategy. So JBI does endorse the PRISMA statement and checklist, and you'll see that actually referred to throughout their manual. So the following 2 slides, we're just going to talk through the PRISMA S checklist and talk about what should be documented and where those to report on the various items. So the PRISMA S is an extension to the PRISMA statement, and it's for reporting of literature searches in systematic reviews. So we can see that the database searched, including the platforms that contain multiple databases. You should name the platform and each database. They should be mentioned in a methods supplementary material and if space permits within an abstract. Any registries that have been searched, sources and search methods for online or print resources such as grey literature or conferences, the methods for locating references on a reference list or cited references, any authors, fellow authors or experts you've contacted to obtain information, any additional search methods that have been used, and other methods could also include using tools that may have assisted in various areas. That can be using text mining tools to develop keywords for a search, And then, as we mentioned before, the full search strategy should be detailed as the appendix. And this can be, a search strategy can actually be copied and pasted straight from a database platform into the supplementary material. So this group from 3 down to 8 there need to be noted in the methods and supplementary material. The full search strategy can be added as a hyperlink within a document to the appendix. Limits and restrictions, so things like if a year limit had been added, should be noted in the abstract methods and supplementary material as part of the search. If no limits have been used whatsoever for a search strategy, this can be noted in the methods area. You should list any search filters that have been used. So filters can be useful to develop a search, and they are good for checking additional terms, adding keywords, or limiting a result. For example, the Cochrane handbook has a filter which identifies RCTs, and the Loicha Institute does have an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health literature filter as well. They can all be listed in the methods and supplementary material. If you've used any prior work and reused that or adapted it to develop your own search strategy, that should cite the author and also mention in the methods and supplementary. Searches often need to be updated as part of publishing a review. So the Cochrane handbook will recommend that if you're submitting and the search was run more than 12 months ago, it should be rerun before submission. So that again needs to, and the dates should be documented. So the date the original search was run and then the update should be noted in your methods and supplementary. If you've done any peer review process, so if the search has been checked by a librarian or you've used any other sources, mention that in your methods. The total number of records of each of the database sources should be inclusive in the supplementary file for your search strategy. Often these databases will come with multiple records, then there is a lot of duplication. So if you use any software to help you deduplicate those records from a database, you should mention that in your methods area. So the following here is an example of 2 papers we've chosen that document the search strategy process quite well within the methods area of their paper. So you'll note here, they have, in the orange, have an outline of their search strategy. At the bottom, they've actually indicated which databases they have used to conduct the search. They have listed any year limits they've added and any online sources. They have added search filters, added the date of the search, acknowledged any prior work has been acknowledged. They have, in this case, collaborated with an informationist to develop the search at the National Institute of Health. Did that click? Oh, and they have added a link to Appendix 1, which is a link to the full search strategy. And any additional information, such as they have included citation searches and if other authors were contacted. So these have all been noted within the methods area, making it a good search strategy statement. The last one here is an example of supplementary material that has been added to the article on the screen here. So they have added a file to this paper, and you can see here that that's clearly detailed what is in the paper. So the contents, you'll see here they've included the PRISMA checklist, a copy of 4 of their searches, and they have also listed some supplementary figures. The PRISMA statement checklist, is completed. It is noting on the far side there where we could go to in page numbers to find anything that's been captured as part of that reporting process. And this is a very detailed Medline search they have. So on this, we can actually see it is in a line-by-line format, making it quite easy for us to read. They've included medical subject headings. They've added keywords. They've indicated to us which fields they've searched when they've done the databases. And this is indicated by the keywords where you can see a .mp or a .ti. That's indicating to us what fields they've used to run this search. The format displayed here actually does make it really easy for another researcher to come along and replicate that search, and they could then go off and build upon that research or just be rerunning it to see what's new in this type of area. So the same detail of search has been included for each of the databases. So the rest were M-based Scopus is central. They've been attached for each of those in this level. Now this is just a list of the sources and articles that we consulted to develop this presentation. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll just see if there's any questions. Any questions? Yes, Ginny Barber. Don't leave.
Fantastic, thank you for that. It's I'm a huge fan of checklists, so I'm with you on this. My question is I suspect that this is not generally very well reported, but what's your impression? I mean, how hard did you have to go looking to find those really good examples? And I guess also just suggestions for editors on how what they should focus on, because you have a lot of things to assess when papers come in, and we're always trying to prioritise. So your thoughts on that? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ginny. Yes, it's very difficult to find well-reported search strategies, but we lucked out and we found that gut article that did have a great search strategy reported. But Cochrane's usually our go-to when we want to find a good example of a reported search, because it's part of the requirements. But yes, it's very often people in a paper, they'll say they adhere to Prisma or followed Prisma, and then you do go looking for that search component and it's missing or very reported in a very incomplete way. So yeah, I think that from my perspective, it's a lot easier to verify a search for peer reviewers a lot quicker than trying to verify data or images or fraudulent research, for example. So perhaps it's a nice initial check, and if any red flags are raised from an incomplete or incompletely reported search strategy. But a lot of the time it's just a lack of awareness on the part of researchers about how to build a proper search strategy. But yeah, I think the checklist, you can easily, if they've acknowledged Prisma, you can use the Prisma checklist to see if all elements are present. That would be my thoughts. Do you have any things to add?
I think you've covered it well. That's all good.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll take one more. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I'm also a librarian. I have seen a lot of papers slipping through, if you like, the peer review process without properly documented search strategies on which the research is based. And in particular, there are a lot of articles coming through that are not relying on a literature search, but are instead relying on citation mapping or ChatGPT, dare I say it. And I've seen at least one of those published, unfortunately. And some of us are working to correct that and write to the journal about that, because it's quite problematic. I just wondered if you wanted to comment on some of those new technologies that might be very enticing to researchers.
We do talk to researchers about those tools, but it's always a recommendation to use them with caution. So ChatGPT, for example, does do really good at hallucinations, and we often see people come in with, I've found this article, can you help me find the full text? And it doesn't exist. So it's a lot of training in that respect to educate people on what the uses there are. But the citation mapping and building is, for some, often a good way to start the process of trying to see what's out there and where their research has started and who's citing who. It's kind of, I think we usually promote in terms of that background style research before they get going.
All right, one last question. I said that was the last one, but Alma, please.
Hi, my name is Alma. I'm the WHO librarian. Thank you for the presentation. Actually, my question has something to do with translated references. Because in our line of work, since we do work with multilingual resources, so the checklist, by the way, is great, especially for systematic reviews, but there are some researches that are actually in local languages. Like in Australia, for example, if you have indigenous research, how do you come up with a checklist for those kinds of materials?
That's a great question. I haven't really come across that. Have you? Do you have any thoughts?
No, not yet either. Sorry. We do. I guess we have a few people in the university that are quite that have that specialisation in that area. So we would probably refer to them in that instance. But yeah, sorry.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much. Here's a little gift for you, and thank you very much for all you've done. Thanks for being part of the conference, and well done. Thank you.